Hello and welcome to the Celtic Huddle podcast. I'm Mark Wilson. I'm joined today by the Celtic legend Murdo McLeod. Today we're also joined by our special guest Tommy Johnson, a man who helped stop 10 in a row in 1998 and also scored that winning goal to clinch a league title for Martin O'Neill's treble winning side in 2001. We'll also be joined later in the programme by Derek McGregor from the Scottish Sun. So, on today's podcast, what we'll speak about Neil Lennon's future and the reasons why he might still be Celtic's manager next season. We'll speak about Celtic's recruitment policy and where they need to improve on that. Tommy Johnson has been in recruitment for a decade, so he's an expert in that field, much more than Murdo and myself are at this moment in time. We'll also look at the club's finances after they posted a loss of almost £6 million and look ahead also to tomorrow night game against Aberdeen. Also, get your comments in, questions into us. We'll try and read out as many as we can, and we want to hear from you, the Celtic fans, where you think the club's going, what you made of the figures that came out yesterday and the statement that came out. Any questions to Tommy on recruitment, get them in and we'll read out as many as we can. And I'm delighted to say once again, the podcast is now sponsored by First Star Legends Gin, First Class Transfers and Social Recluse. We thank them all for their support. So let's get to it, Murdo. No time to waste. Once again, Murdo, the 2-1 win at St Johnstone means it's now 4 wins in the trot in the league for Celtic and Neil Lennon. Have they turned a corner now, Neil and the players, after that bumpy November-December period?
It's difficult to say turning a corner, because we always said about after the horrendous run that Celtic went through, and then they won a few games back to back, and then they lost and drew games and all this kind of thing, and it's back again. But again, Celtic fans are turning the corner to be challenging at the top. That's turning a corner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you're sitting 18 points behind and all that, that's no turning.
It's not turning a corner yet.
No.
Listen, let's bring in Tommy Johnson. Tommy, thanks very much for joining us. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
All right. Thanks, Willow. Hiya, Murdo. Okay.
Good, Tommy. Thanks.
Good to see you. You still working away? How's life at Blackpool? Day to day, still 95.
A bit longer than that, Willow. You know what it's like. It's been all right, yeah. It's, since probably first lockdown, it's mainly just watching games on the laptop now, watching players. We've done a lot of work early doors in the summer. We didn't have to do so much in January, but it's working towards the summer now again, watching players just on the laptop, trying to get out to as many games as possible. But obviously with the pandemic, it's a bit difficult at the minute.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that a wee bit later on, what your role is, and you can, chat us further through it. But let's start with Celtic and this week. I don't know if you've seen any of the game, but I was just asking Murdo there. 4 wins in the trot. Now, a couple of those performances have been much better, probably what you associate with a Celtic side. Now, I think we'll all accept that Rangers will win the league, but touching on Neil's position, if he can win all 10 remaining league games and the 2 against Rangers, should they still be allowed to stay on as manager?
Oh, what a question that is, Willow.
Thanks, Tommy.
I think if Peter Lawwell was going to still be in charge, I think it'd be highly likely. Everybody knows how close I am to Neil anyway, and he's probably been through a difficult time this season. But until he's told otherwise, he's just going to crack on with the job. And the board have come out, and Desmond and Peter have said, they review the situation, whether that's now, next month or whatever. But who's going to come in? That is the question, There's been rumours about Rafa Benitez and all that. But as I've said all along, Neil's in the job, and until he's told otherwise, he's not going to be going anywhere. Yeah.
And Murdo, what about that? I mean, you look at the run of games have been on. See, if we look at the games coming up, Aberdeen are on a horrible run. We'll touch on them later on. He wins that, and he wins that at Ross County and goes on and on. Quite likely he could become the manager of the month. He then builds on that. He's got 2 important games coming up against Rangers, albeit the league might be gone, but he narrows the point gap. Will Celtic fans accept him as a manager next season? Does he then deserve another shot at the full rebuild and having another go at it?
I think it's very difficult. Because I think there was one target this season was to win 10 in a row. That was the history of the club, and it never happened. And it was just, you can lose a title and a couple of points at the end of the season, or losing the last game of the season and lose the title. All these kind of things could have happened.
Yeah.
But to be sitting the way we're sitting just now is really poor.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the sides, because the Celtic fans, albeit it's maybe 4 wins in a row, but you're looking at the performances. It's still not what Celtic, when the way we started the season, everybody's saying, 10 in a row is not a problem. We're going to win that because we're playing so well, we're a good side. And then when we hit the wall, we've not recovered from it.
Yeah.
And albeit, you're saying 4 in a row, Celtic should be winning that all 10 in a row, 12 in a row, 15 in a row, victories in a row, to try and close it down in Rangers.
Well, it's small steps just now. I mean, considering where the club were, November, December.
But it doesn't
time,
matter where they've been.
Yeah. I was at
There's a
Celtic
target.
when-
There's a target. I keep on saying that there's a target, and I don't think we're going to reach that. And that's the thing. That's where everybody's got the directors have got to sit down. The fans will be angry about the whole scenario, because I don't think there'll be many Celtic fans, and I don't see many now these days. Because you're not going to Celtic Park, and you're not listening to the kind of the feelings from other Celtic supporters. But most of them, I'm sure, that will be just so disappointed the way the whole season's went.
Yeah, I think I was going to say that I was at Celtic when Neil was just in the job. I think we lost the title on the last day, and he had his speech on the pitch where he said this is just the beginning, and the fans lapped up. They loved it, and they renewed their season tickets, and they believed that there was something special coming under Neil the next season. I don't know if that would be the case now, Tommy. £30 million a season ticket money probably riding on the decision either to keep Neil Lennon, or a large portion of that 30 million, I should say, keep Neil Lennon or get a box office figure. Do you think they would, if Neil was given a job, would they buy into it? Would they come out in their hordes and put their hands in their pockets again?
Yeah, time will tell. Willow, to be fair, there have been rumblings, and we've seen the horrible scenes that was just before Christmas with the fans making protests and all that. So obviously they're not happy. They weren't happy at the time. With fans not being in the ground at the minute, it's who knows what will happen, but everybody knows the amount of fans and season ticket holders that Celtic have got. And if they don't renew their season tickets because Neil's still in charge, and then the club have got a decision to make. It is a massive source of income for the club, and we all three of us know what it's like to be playing in front of 60,000 every week. The fans are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's not the thing with Celtic supporters just now renewing the season books. They're looking at it. That's their club. Where else are they going to go on a Saturday? Mm-hmm. So they will renew. It doesn't matter who's the manager just now.
Yeah.
Because I think the Celtic fans will still want, and it possibly they might be slow buying or renewing. I think that could happen this season. They might be very slow.
That was going to happen anyway, was it? With anybody, even in the pandemic, fans aren't going to be easily dipping into their pocket for £500 in a pandemic. But just on the turn the corner thing, John Barr here's tweeted in, turn no corner, NL played with one striker up front, back to the stubborn ways he played before, and the team struggled. Well, they struggled in patches, but I thought, some of the two of their goals were great on Sunday. Tommy, touching on Neil, you know Neil very well, obviously for playing with him, and over the years as well, when you have retired from football. But what have you made of the past 4 or 5 months for him, both in his role as a manager and as a person, I suppose?
He's been through a tough time, as probably everybody can see, and at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and the stick that we all get, whether it's just Neil at the minute, is whether it's justified or unjustified, that's what we're in the game for, to be honest. We've all played the game, we've all been on that side of the fence as well as coaches and managers, and it's difficult, but you've got to ride it out. It's as a person, he'll be feeling it, because Neil's had so much success over the years as a player and a manager, and as Murdo said before, we all thought this was the season, it was going to be 10 in a row and all that, and go into the history books, but it looks like it's not going to be. So it's he'll be hurting. and knowing him as I do, and you know, I'd be hurting like every Celtic fan is.
Yeah, that's the thing, Tommy. I mean, you know him well. I know him well from playing with him and him being my manager, and I know he's up for the fight. And I know he's come out and said that he's preparing to be there next season. But the amount of stick he's taking this year and the toll it's maybe taking on him, would he want to stay? Would he get to the end of the season, do you think, and just think, you know,
no,
I love the club, but it's too
you
much?
No, not at all. He'll be ready for the fight again. You know, as we mentioned, it looks like the league's over this year, but Neil's not a quitter. The only way that Neil will be leaving Celtic is if Dermot Desmond and new chairman and the board and the chief exec will want to make that change in the management situation. But knowing Lenny as I do, no chance he's walking out.
Well, you bring us on to a good point when you mention the chief exec, and obviously the chief exec is changing. Don Mackay is going to come in now. Is it a big gamble to change two important positions like that in the one go? Chief exec and manager. Now, Celtic fans want the manager out as well. I only mentioned we were looking at this beforehand, and when you look at Man United and when Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill both left and were replaced by David Moyes and Ed Woodward, I think you seen and you heard that was the big problem. It was two guys at the top of the tree leaving, bringing two new guys in, and it's a big position to fill. What do you think? Is it a gamble, Murdo? Is it better having a chief exec coming in and keeping Neil in the job, or do you just go fresh start?
Yeah, well, it's freshness, isn't it? You know, when you bring in a new chief exec, and if you're going to change the manager, but obviously you're looking for a similar scenario at Man United. And at Man United, we've watched them over all the years since Fergie left, when David Moyes first got the job and all that kind of thing, and they've slipped down the table, mid-table. They've never been kind of up at the top, so they've struggled. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's one thing that's happened at one club. I don't think it will happen at another club.
Clubs.
I think when you get freshness in, because Peter been at the club for so long, and financially he was fantastic for the club. Mm-hmm. But you're looking now, he's out the door, so it's just freshness, and that's got to come in. And Neil, for me, will not walk away from Celtic. Celtic, if they want a change, they've got to move Neil on.
Yeah. What do you make of that, Tommy? Is it a gamble to have two of the most probably important positions at the club vacated and then filled with two new people? Is that a big gamble for a huge club like Celtic?
Time will tell. Will it want it? The new man will have his ideas. You know who's coming in. Peter, as we mentioned, Peter's been there a very long time. Financial and stability wise on that side of it has been very, very good. But the new man will have his own ideas and which way he wants to go forward. And we've got to remember that Dermot Desmond will have a massive say in what's going to be happening as well. Yeah.
Well, look, here's one here, Martin Kiernan on a new man. I'm baffled by Neil Lennon's team selections and his substitutions, puzzling. Where does Celtic turn to? There's managers available. Eddie Howe would be ideal. Fresh ideas, fresh outlook. Removing the dead wood. Now, removing the dead wood, that brings us on again to another point. Removing the dead wood. Because head of recruitment and director of football, let's move on to that. Now, Tommy, hugely experienced in that field, been in it for a decade now, with three different clubs, Blackburn, Nottingham Forest, and now at Blackpool. How important is that to a club? Because if I'm being honest, is it a new term in the last decade, 15 years, head of recruitment? Was it not just chief scout? And what's the difference then between, you tell me, I'm asking out of personal interest for me, because I know they're hugely important, and Nicky Hammond is getting a rough ride up here for what's going on in the pitch. So if things go bad at Blackpool, are you going to get it in the neck?
Yeah, I'll probably get stick. And I'm not on social media, Will, so I don't know what's being said or whatever, but it's chief scout, or however you want to call it, head of recruitment. There's all different titles now. There's technical director, there's head of scouting. More or less, it's all about recruitment and players. That's all it is. It's you can call us whatever you want. You know, the clubs I've been to, I've actually
don't say that, Tommy.
you can, the clubs that I've been at, Murdo, I've just said, what do you want us to do? And it's heading up the recruitment, so the recruitment side of the club. So,
but Tommy, the biggest thing is you know better than most people. The biggest thing is the players that come to the football club and how successful they are. That's what it's all about. That's what Tommy's job and all the other job is. It's all about the players that come. It's all right, a player with a reputation. When Celtic are looking for players, they've got to be able to come to Celtic and be a top class player.
Yeah,
that's what's got to happen. And if they turn up, especially this year, because I don't think financially that Celtic held a lot of money back. They did spend a lot of money to bring this squad together.
Yeah.
But the quality of the players hasn't been there.
Yeah, well, talking about highly rated, Tommy, you're obviously very highly rated in your role just now, because Henrik Larsson tried to take his part of his backroom team to Southend. I mean, how big a compliment was that?
Massive, yeah. Obviously played with Henrik, knew him, kept in touch. You know, when I was over in Sweden watching games, you know, went down and seen him and big Johan Mjällby. So when the interest was there, was from Southend, it was more or less agreed. Just waiting for the contract to come through, and then lastminute.com, Blackpool came in, and deep down I just thought, you know, that was the right move for me. And then there was a hoorah with the chairman of Southend who was saying, well, I'd spoke to him on the morning, and he was saying, right, I'll give you a ring later. Is it about money and all that? And I said, no, it's about I just feel it's best for me, for my personal circumstances. And they decided, because I never went, that Henrik and Johan wouldn't get the job, which I found astounding. You know, they could always get ahead of recruitment, to be fair, Willow. It just didn't have to be me. I'd made the decision. And I've said numerous times since what's happened, you know, Henrik's gone to Barcelona, I've gone to Blackpool, and so I texted him when he went and said, listen, I told you it was the right move, we're not going to Southend. And you've seen the problems at Southend have had. They got relegated, they were, you know, they've been under a transfer embargo, they weren't paying wages, the financial side of the clubs, and it wasn't in a good place. So, and it was the right decision.
There you go. So if Barcelona go on to win Champions Leagues and La Liga, it's down to yourself bringing Henrik, and I'm sure he sees the funny side of it now. But like, joking aside, it shows you how highly rated you were, not only by Henrik but by the Southend owner, that the deal hinged on you going. But touching on your career, you're obviously at Blackpool just now, obviously connected to Celtic. Would you ever, if that role came up at Celtic, would you like to go back? Would you like to work with Neil in some capacity?
I see a smile in his face there.
Look, Murdo, have you seen how he's just led into that question?
Listen, you led me there.
Let it in. Well, there's been rumours, haven't there? And in the past, I did actually go up and meet Peter Lawwell twice, and Lenny wanted to bring us in last year, but the powers of be had made the decision not to, shall I say. So, as I said, I spoke, and everybody knows once you play for Celtic and how much it means to you and all that. And Neil had asked us to come in, but unfortunately...
So, wait, Tommy, was that before Nick Cameron got the job, or...
There was,
obviously before.
Nick was in the process of coming in full-time, and I think a couple of weeks later, he was appointed, but... it was. I was, as I said.
You came close to it then?
I was all for coming up and helping Neil in any which way I can, but it didn't materialise. Nick got the job. Not that I was going for that job anyway. I think Lenny just wanted us in and to help out with the recruitment, to be someone around him who he could talk to. You know, Murdo, you've been in that situation as an assistant manager, and a manager's got to have someone, and that's no disrespect to Gavin Strachan who's come in, and John Kennedy and the rest of the staff. I think you need, as a manager, someone who you can actually talk to on a personal basis as well. And Neil hasn't brought anybody in of his own since he's been at the club. which is quite astounding when you look back at Brendan Rodgers, the amount of staff Brendan brought in, which is right. I think anybody who goes in as a manager, I think my first bit of advice is get somebody in who you know, who was good at the job and who you can trust and speak to. And as I said, Neil hasn't, and it's no disrespect to all the staff that is there, but
no, listen, you're right. You're right, Tommy. You look across the other side of the city. Stephen Gerrard has brought in staff, guys that he trusts. But I wouldn't put you off, would it? If the opportunity came up again, yeah.
Not at all. No.
So look, I'm interested to hear about. Things could have been so different. It could have been Tommy Johnson making the calls on players coming in, not Nick Cameron, and things could have been different. But look, out of self-interest again, Tommy, what actually goes into then the head of recruitment and scouting or looking into a player? Like, how long does that take? What's the process? Is it video after video? Do you have to go and see these guys in the flesh? And then when you pass on to the manager, how long does the process take to get a player in?
The process is massive now, to be fair, Willow. I think obviously with Murdo working at Celtic, you've got to get most of the decisions right. There's so much due diligence now. First and foremost, you analyse a squad. Neil will analyse a squad, and he'll say what positions he needs, and then you'll have a profile for each position of player. Do you want a fullback who's going to be bombing on all the time, or do you want someone sitting back and defending? With the way Celtic play and have most of possession every game, you would want someone who was decent on the ball. So you'd sit down, go through all positions, and dealing with agents or players available. Due diligence is massive now. Massive. You can sit down and watch games on the laptop, which that's what we're doing at the minute, but I'm quite old-fashioned and I've got to see them play.
Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy, can I ask you a question? How often would the manager get to see a new player?
That depends on the circumstances of the games. At the minute, Murdo, it's very, very difficult to go and watch them live, but they will definitely watch them on the laptop, watch them on games. We've got Y Scout and various.
Can I ask you another quick question? I've never seen a video of a player that can't play football.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you.
Do you know what I mean?
I would say we've got to watch them live. It's difficult at the minute. We have made signings at Blackpool where we've just seen them on the laptop. And it's very, very difficult. When I go to games, I like to go and watch them in the warm-up, see what they're like in the warm-up.
Yeah.
And watching games, if I'm watching a centre-half, for example, you never watch the ball, because if the ball's up the other end of the pitch, you're watching what he's doing, without possession and when he's 30, 40 yards from the ball. So... yeah, God, we were brilliant on video, weren't we? We could put all our clips together. We could play for Barcelona. But you're totally right, and it's and there's a lot of things now, stats and data, which come into the fore. But going back to, I think due diligence is massive. I've mentioned it a few months ago.
Yeah,
like, I could ring you, Murdo, about a player in Scotland, and you'd give me an honest opinion. I've got Darren Jackson, who's scouting for us up, and he knows a lot more about the players up in Scotland than I do. So
Jacko knows a player. He was my agent, Murdo. Was a player, Jacko. Tommy, here's one. Tommy Sabatelli there. Wish Tommy was a scout for Celtic, because it's been a shambles with the buys Celtic have made. Look, see, just on what you're saying there about the laptop business and not being able to really see players in the flesh, or it's difficult. How tough a job is that going to be then for Celtic next season? Looking at Celtic starting 11 on Sunday, and it was probably strongest or thereabouts anyway that they could field, and how many of them are going to be there next year? Potentially a new manager or Neil Lennon or the new chief exec have to find 11 players. 11 players to go in and impact that first team. How difficult is that going to be?
Well, you would like to think they've got the wheels in motion already. Well, to be honest, we always work in windows going ahead, so we've been working from, even though we signed players last summer, we would have been doing the work, 6 months to a year. You look at who's out of contract for your own team, say like Celtic, I don't know how many's out of contract, but there needs to be an overhaul of the playing squad, because they haven't been that, up to scratch this season. they've done well the previous seasons, but we always work into 1-2 windows ahead. So we'll be looking towards the summer now, and then we'll already have it who's out of contract, shall I say, and then who's out of contract next season. But you would like to think there'll be a list of players already identified on a list. Your main ones, probably who you would love to get. There'll be a list, and then there'll be a second list, and then a third list, and then different things like under 23s, which they've done with Frimpong from Man City. There's and it's going to depend on finances. That's
yeah, massive, of course.
Right? It's
it's a lengthy process. I mean, just listen to you told me speak about it. It's a lengthy process. But Brian Watt here is just saying Nicky Hammond's record hasn't been great, but the outgoing chief exec has to take more than his share of the blame for not getting some crucial deals over the line. Time to freshen everything up. Tommy's there saying about finances. Yeah. Celtic have been, cash rich if you like, but they've sort of dragged their heels. But look, on the head of recruitment,
your problem now that Celtic's paid X amount for all the new players that's arrived at the club, and they failed. Now Celtic's maybe got to think we've got to pay even more money.
Yeah, or get somebody.
Whereas when you look about Turnbull's arrived at the club for a lot less money than some of the other players,
exactly,
and he's been possibly the best of them all.
Yeah. So touching on the new director of football, Matteo Tognazzi Murdo of Juventus, quite a flash name. And people, because he's got a flash name, and like my Juventus fans will lap that up, I'm sure, as they always do. David Webb, formerly of Spurs and Bournemouth, have been linked, as well as Fergal Harkin. So, I mean, you worked under Jock Brown in 1997-98. How important a role is it to have a buffer between the football department and the boardroom?
Yeah, it is important. You've got to be side by side. You've got to get the backup from the boardroom. Everyone at the boardroom. It's no use some people within the board and not backing up the manager. The manager has got to make all these decisions because the board will help him to get there, whether they're bringing in new players. And it could be that there's no money at the club, but you're desperate for a player and you've got to ask the board, and they'll push for you and get you some money. So you've got to have a really good relationship. And that's what's got to happen at every football club. But if it's just wee bits and pieces, like I see one or two people talking about Neil Mjalby should have been at his side from day one, because what you want is someone that you can put your arm round and chat to them and what do you think, and find out what they think as well. And I think that's maybe been missing for Neil. Anytime there's been a problem at the park, on the park, or at training or anything, he's looking to two other guys that was brought in by other people.
Yeah. Tommy, the relationship between the director of football and the boardroom is hugely important. Head of recruitment as well. I mean, when you come up with a player, do you report directly just to the manager, or is there a buffer in there? Can you go to the chief exec or the owner? Do you have much dealings with him?
Yeah, both, to be honest. The chief exec brought me in. Simon Grayson was manager, and I knew Simon anyway, so it was having a meeting with him when I first come in, and that was not a problem. Unfortunately for Simon, we changed the manager and brought Neil Critchley in as well. So during first lockdown, it was players get recommended everywhere, left, right and centre. You do your due diligence, as I've mentioned before, and what positions we need. And we were having Zoom calls once a week during first lockdown, just going through what positions in it. And it changes all the time. Obviously players go to different clubs, they get injured, stuff like that. They don't want to live up in near Blackpool. All these things to consider. They've got families, they're in London, etc., etc. So we would have, the chief exec would be on, the manager would be on, or the scouting team would be on, and we go through players like that. And at times, the owner would be on, because he's very hands-on and he likes to be involved. But most of the time, the chief exec deals with the owner. But at times, he liked to come on the Zoom calls just to see what we were actually doing, and processes of what we were doing, and which players we were talking about. So, there's no problem. speaking to the manager and the chief exec as well. And as Murdo said, you've got to have harmony. There's no point in them being fractions everywhere between the board and your football staff. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I get that there'll always be arguments in that situation, surely, Tommy, when you think you've done your job proper, recommended a player, the manager likes him, you go to the chief exec or the board and they aren't willing to sanction it. I'm probably alluding to, we heard the rumours of Brendan Rodgers with the John McGinn and other targets that he wanted came to the board and or Pierre Lowell and it didn't work. Have you seen that in your role?
Definitely.
Blackpool and Blackburn and Nottingham Forest?
You can, as a head of recruitment, chief scout, you can recommend players. You've done everything possible that you can to find out about them, and you want to bring them into the club. And for whatever reasons, you've just mentioned them there, the financial could break down, or the manager doesn't want to sign him. At the end of the day, it's the manager's decision. I can and it's not a problem. The gaffer will say, listen, we need a centre-half, left-footed centre-half who can play out and all that, and I'll chuck a few names at him, and he'd probably say, well, which one do you like best? And I'd say, well, I like him, and I think he'd be a fit or whatever. But he could turn, he has turned around and said, no, I prefer such and such, which at the end of the day, he's the manager, Will, so you just get on with it. All I can do
I'd be raging at that. I'd think he was questioning my ability to spot a player then.
But what's football all about?
I'm not good enough. Opinions, of course.
Everyone's got opinion.
And I suppose it's the manager who gets the sack, not you, Tommy, is it? I suppose at the end of the day. But we had a comment up there, sorry, it's just disappeared anyway. It was a point the board has gone stagnant now and recruitment has been bad. It's time to recruit. There's another one doing it. The Celtic board are stagnant at the moment and have been for a while. They can't make a decision to save their life, completely dysfunctional, and it's going to affect next season. That's the thing. Celtic fans do think that the lack of clarity just now is going to run into the start of next season, and it's a hard thing to get their heads around in some occasions. Tommy, I hope you're a better recruiter of first-team players than you were the 7-a-side team that me and you took part in Derry a couple of years ago. That was a horrendous team, Murdo.
What happened?
we went to... Well, somebody's turned up, Murdo. Somebody's had a late night the night before. Anyway, we went to Derry to play in a tournament, a charity thing, 7-a-side. And me and Rob Douglas flew from Glasgow, separate from Tommy. It was Jackie McNamara, it was Simon Donnelly, Alan Stubbs, Mark Burchill, Boydie, the captain, the skipper. And me and Rob turned up professional, as you like, at the ground an hour before these guys turned up. And they were a wee bit worse for wear. And that was the worst performance from a 7-a-side team you'll ever see. Czech Republic, remember Czech Republic, Tommy?
Oh my God. Yeah, but you didn't mention the night before we'd had a game the day before in Dublin. No, was it Belfast? And we'd had the dinner at the night as well. And then we had to be up at stupid o'clock in the morning to get the minibus up to Derry. So he forgot to mention that, Murdo.
Listen, I just like
at least you can get another wee sleep in the minibus then.
Well, listen, some of them were sleeping by the side of the pitch. I remember turning around and I seen Stubbsy just lying down. Remember Stubbsy's top?
Oh my God.
They were all printed up with the numbers on them and the names, whatever number you wore. Yeah. And Stubbsy turns up, it looked like a crop top. Honestly, he was raging going about, but of course Stubbs on the back, he couldn't change it. But look, just quickly, Tommy, Murdo's here, 97, 98 team, the camaraderie that was in that side at the time, with Murdo at the helm, should we say. What was that like? Just seemed a different group of players to vote.
Brilliant, wasn't it? Obviously, Vim had come in, Murdo, and I think we lost the first 2 games, didn't we, Murdo? And everyone thought it was going to be 10 in a row, but it's been well documented. You know what we were like. We're a great squad, and I've always said I think it helped Vim that Murdo had played abroad. So he knew the culture of what it was like abroad, and I think Murdo had to explain to Vim now and again what our culture was like over here, that we need. We did play hard, but we worked hard as well, you know what I mean, when we were training, and we done everything at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, we had such good camaraderie with the lads. And listen, I never played. I hardly ever played. But you still felt part of it. And, you know, at the end of that season, it was fantastic, one at Murdo, stopping 10 in a row. And I think you don't realise how big a thing it was. You know, and when you looking at what it is going to be like for the Rangers, shall I say, this year, it is massive to do it. And but as you mentioned, no one gave us a prayer after the first few games, but we just dug in, and we got such a great squad, and we all went out together. We even got all the foreigners coming out with us, Murdo, in the end. That's how good it was. Yeah.
You can speak Swedish now and Danish.
Well,
But it was great. But Tommy said it himself there. He says he didn't play in a lot of games, but he was fantastic round about the football pitch, everywhere, training everywhere. And
that's what it was like in that 7-a-side in Derry.
Aye, the same as Derry.
That's why he was fantastic around the pitch.
But Tommy was great in the dressing room and all that kind of thing, and going to training and all that. And that's what you need. That's what you've got to have a really good, strong squad that everyone's together.
Yeah,
everyone's together. They can put their arms around each other and chat about things, tell about wee stories, a bit of fun, a bit of hard work. Everything had to go together.
Yeah.
And Tommy was a big part of that, I've got to say.
Exactly. Something special to be a part of that. Tommy, thanks very much. We'll let you go now, but thank you for giving us your time, and wish you all the best with Blackpool this season.
Thanks a lot, Willow. Good to see you, and Murdo, top man. Look after yourselves.
Cheers, Tommy.
Cheers, mate.
All
Cheers, Tommy. Speak to you later. Brilliant for Tommy Johnson. So as Tommy goes, we can bring in Derek McGregor from the Scottish Sun. Derek, how you doing?
I'm good, Mark. Thank you. Hello, Murdo. How are you? You doing okay?
Good, Derek. Thank you. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Never a dull moment in Scottish football.
No, never. Listen,
Never
there's
changes.
been many, loads of talking points this week. But Derek, look, we were just touching on, I don't know if we didn't get your opinion last week, quickly on the director of football position, head of recruitment. We just had Tommy Johnson on there just chatting a bit about it. How have you found the whole week, and some of the names being linked to the job? More and more names now. Last week we only had Fergal Harkin. This week there seems to be more names linked with the job. Will it be an appointment that's made soon?
I think it's fascinating, and I think it just points to the fact that it is. I think it is going to happen. I think what's going on at the moment is that clearly the board are carefully reviewing options. They're no doubt they've been contacted by representatives offering, various individuals. I think it's for all that Celtic are in crisis at the moment, or it's been a turbulent season to say the least. I still think it's a very attractive position for somebody, because I think what it's offering potentially is a blank canvas. And I think for any manager coming in, or a director of football, I think that's always something that's got to appeal, because on the face of it, it would give you so much scope. And I think the names that have been linked with the job are also of a good calibre, a good pedigree. So I think in the coming months it'll become clearer. I think as will the manager situation. I think right now, as I think Ian Bankier said in his statement yesterday, it's like calm and rational thinking, and that might be too slow for a lot of people. But I actually think Celtic are wise, I think, to be careful with these decisions, because the last thing they want to do is make the situation even worse with rash decision making.
Yeah, well, you touched on Ian Bankier's statement there. What did you make it overall?
No surprise, to be honest, Mark. I mean, I thought it was pretty vague. It was full of what I would call corporate sincerity. There's kind of platitudes, a lack of detail, and quite honestly, I wasn't really expecting anything different, Mark. I think certainly if you read between the lines, I think for me there's effective confirmation there that Neil Lennon will be the manager for the rest of the season. I think when they talk about making calm and rational decisions, and they're not going to be rushed, I think that's what that tells you. And I think by keeping Neil as the manager to the end of the season, I think in their minds they're buying themselves time again to consider all the options. I think the board have been slaughtered this season for their lack of communication. But I actually thought Ian Bankier was right to emphasise that throughout it all, Neil has always assessed things before and after games. Neil's, whatever people might think of Neil, I don't think anyone can criticise him for not fronting up, for not facing the music. He's faced a lot of extremely hard questions. He's been very emotional at times, but no one can ever accuse Neil of hiding from, the inquisitions or the grilling after some seriously bad results.
No, you're right. Actually, that's a good point, because you never really see him send out his assistant or a coach really that much. You see managers when they get thumped. I don't want to speak to the press, so send some out. Did you ever get sent out, Murdo, when you got thumped?
No. Vim always
fronted up as well. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, just touching on Neil then, Derek, do you think there's a realistic possibility that you said that the board are saving themselves time before they make a decision? Do you think the decision is maybe to keep Neil on next year?
Look, I think the odds are going to be against Neil, and I don't just mean obviously because it's been a poor season. I also think what possibly counts against Neil is that with there being so much change, you've got a new chief executive coming in. I think there's going to be a director of football coming in, and both of them, I referred to the blank canvas earlier, and I think both of them will want to probably start afresh, and they will. Certainly Dominic Mackay will be acutely aware of the negativity towards Neil at the moment. And, I think what's going to count against Neil is that Dominic Mackay will want positivity right from the word go. And politically, he may feel that even if he thinks that Neil has a lot of qualities as manager, it may be a bad move for whatever influence Dominic Mackay might have in the manager decision. But I think right now the board...
He's got to have a big influence, surely, Derek.
You would like to think so.
He's got to have a big one. Aye.
You would like to think so, and you'd like to think before he took the job, he established what kind of authority he would have. But let's be honest here. I mean, I think, see, at the end of the day, I think if Dermot Desmond does not want a particular manager, he's not going to have that particular manager. I think he'll ultimately be the decision maker.
Yeah, EPH need a manager with a proven track record to come in and sort out the mess. Bring in one or two top players. Eddie Howe is the wrong guy at this time. Derek, on the financial side, £6 million loss mentioned in the interim results. Is that a big surprise?
No. I mean, I think clearly Celtic are best placed in the country to weather this extraordinary storm, this financial storm. But I think on the flip side, Mark, they're also the club that's burning the most money at the moment. And certainly the cash reserves that have been burned up is quite extraordinary. And there's warnings, obviously, of worse to come. But
makes you think that trip to Dubai wasn't the best thing to do, is it? $250,000.
Well, certainly with hindsight, purely on a financial basis, no. But of course, I think that the transfers of Jeremy Frimpong and Hatem El Hamid will go some way to balancing those losses.
Yeah. Look, on the pitch, guys, Murdo, ahead of tomorrow night's game against Aberdeen, how good was it to see Edward, back to something like himself? Fantastic 2 goals against St Johnstone. Well,
is it too late now? Do you know what I mean?
Is he performing too late?
Aye. Because obviously he was one of the players that people were talking about that he was wanting a move. And obviously that's the reason he's arrived at Celtic Park and he was going to get a big move at some point. And now the build-up just now, as the season went on, he was getting worse and worse and no great attitude.
Well, he had
yesterday.
To be fair, he did have COVID for a period, didn't he? Are we overlooking that for a bit? And the tolls that may take.
No, I don't. I'm not sure. You can't. Somebody's illness. You can't talk about it. How bad they were, or how. But it's not so bad on the pitch. If you're got a green and white jersey on, that's what you're judged. And the way he's played and his attitude hasn't been great. But at the weekend, or over the last half a dozen games, he started scoring goals again. But the goals he scored at the weekend were the way he was when he was playing at his best. Classy goals. The second goal, 9 times out of 10, you'd always see the goalkeeper blocking the second goal because he's taking another touch, taking it wider, and yet he's managed to get the ball into the net. So for me, he's just getting himself back to top performances.
He's been unbelievable. I mean, 8 goals in his last 6 games, and if you look at the start of the season, the couple of months from September where he scored that hat-trick, remember, way back in August, and everybody thought he's going to rip this league up. He took a number of months to get to 8 goals in that period that Celtic were going through a hard time. But Derek, is Edouard hitting form just at the right time? Right time where recruitment departments around the country and around Europe are starting to compile their transfer wish list?
No question. Yeah, no question about it, Mark. I think Edouard will realise that in order to get the move that I think he will crave, and I've got no doubts I've got no doubts he wanted the move last summer. Now he's obviously had to accept he's having to wait for it, and I think in order to attract good enough options for him, he knows he has to raise his game significantly, and I think that's what we've been seeing in recent weeks. I think that he will have been told, look, if you want good options, you're going to have to raise your game. And as Murdo was saying there, I mean, I think the quality of his goals on Sunday were outstanding, and he's suddenly hit a rich vein of form. So it's maybe too little, too late for Celtic, but for odds-on Edouard, I think that he could be timing it well.
Yeah. Just look at Celtic over the transfer window. Frimpong, not been great for Celtic, but his attitude was great. He was running about the pitch and all that kind of thing. But he's caught the eye of another football club, and they paid an awful lot of money for him.
Yeah.
So because of his attitude, that's why he's got his move.
Yeah. So Edouard has to.
Edouard had.
So how much Murdo is Edouard worth? Come summer, you're a club, you're a Borussia Dortmund. Say you're coming in for Edouard. What are you paying for him? Let's say he gets to 25 goals, which you think he would.
You're looking between 15 and 20 million.
Is that a good return? After paying 9 million for him?
If you're a scout and going to the game and watching the way he's played, then you think, well, that's somebody with an attitude. So it's a kind of, you're taking a gamble. Because if somebody's not playing the way he can play every game, then I think there's always a wee kind of attitude problem. Then that's why you would not pay 25 million or something like that, 22 million.
Yeah, Derek, 15 to 20 million, what's your assessment where he lies in the transfer kind of transfer costs at the minute?
I'd say about 20 at the moment. I think last summer, I think probably 30 plus, I think would have been a justifiable fee for Celtic. I think the season that it's been, clearly his value has dropped. Certainly, I thought... So
that's a big thing though, Derek, because you sign him for 9 million, you sell him for 20 million just now, you think that's great, but like you say, when you're talking about last summer, you're right, it's probably 30 million. So you're like, have you lost 10 million in a year because of your performances?
You were asking me about Ian Bankier's statement, Mark, and you won't often hear this phrase said, but in fairness to the board, last summer they obviously they could easily have cashed in Edouard, and as Bankier stated in his statement, their strategy at that point was to maintain or keep a hold of the big players while in addition to strengthening. Now in each case they delivered because they also spent substantially in the transfer market. But certainly going back to Edouard, I mean, I think, okay, he's had a dip in form, but the potential was there, and I think that was the case with Frimpong. I don't think Frimpong was playing particularly well, really, compared to what he had been before when Leverkusen came in with that incredible deal. And I think Leverkusen, a lot of that was on his potential, not just so much in his current form, but his potential. The same will be with Edouard.
Yeah. Okay, so just quickly, guys, can he help make it 5 wins on the trot tomorrow night against Aberdeen, who are going through struggles of their own at this minute. Murdo, what you think? Predictions for tomorrow night?
2-0.
2-0 Celtic. Edward on the score sheet again.
Yes.
For the seventh game running. Derek, what do you think tomorrow night?
I think Celtic might go without a goalkeeper, Mark, because Aberdeen haven't scored in 5 games. They might play what we used to know in our days as backing in, last man in goal.
A backy, aye.
No, seriously, I think Celtic will make it 5 wins in a row. I'll go with 2-1.
Yeah, okay. Excellent, guys. That's us. Derek, thanks once again for joining us. We'll hopefully speak to you again next week. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Murdo.
Cheers, Derek.
Cheers. Murdo, that's us. So 2-0 you said?
2-0, yes.
Yeah, I think it'll be Celtic. I'll go for 3-0 tomorrow night. I can see Celtic getting all 3 points to make it 5 in a row. That's us for this week. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Tommy Johnson, who gave us great insight on the head of recruitment, and thanks to our sponsors, First Star Legends Gin, Social Recluse and First Class Transfers. We'll see you again next week.